Hello everyone, again it's Guren, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about one of my favorite decks in the Gundam card game right now, a little bit of a dark horse. We'll go through the units, the pilots, commands, and the bases in that order. We'll talk a little bit about how this deck is good and why this deck is bad. First off, this is, as you've seen from the title and the thumbnail hopefully, this is the Vultures deck, or the Gundam X deck. Start off with playing 4 of the Genis. So 1 drop you can play turn 1. 3 of the Gafran. It's a 2/3 that cannot attack the player, but it is great for cleaning up units. It's basically just a turn 2 play or going second turn 1 play. We're playing 2 of the Strike, which is basically a tech card to get some draw power going on a body. Playing 5 blockers total, 3 Lafrith, broken card, and 2 of the Airmaster, which is also a link unit with a big attack stat. It's a little bit bigger than Lafrith. Hopefully, if your opponents swing into it, you'll be able to kill it. Also playing 3 of the Airmaster Fighter mode. This unit is actually really useful if you need a quick link, and it's got a decent stat block for being pretty cheap. Playing max copies of the Gundam X, the rare, the foil version, 1 alt art. This is your main combo piece, as it were. It's got text on it that says, during pair Vulture pilot, so it doesn't need to be specifically Garrod. You don't need to waste Garrod on this. In a pinch, you can just slap on Roybia or Wits. We're not playing Wits, though. On the Destroy trigger, choose 1 Vulture unit card that's level 5 or higher from your trash and add it to your hand. Currently, the only target for this is Gundam X, the LR. Now, one of the sellers I bought from mistakenly sent me the rare instead of the LR, so I'm only running 2 at the moment. Would be playing 3. I think 3 is the right amount. You basically see it every game with how much you mill, if you do your combo correctly. This is the only card in the game currently that has suppression constantly. It's not conditional. Hi, kitty. I see my cat on screen here in a second. It has another effect during link. If you have 7 or more cards in your trash, all of your other Vultures get AP +2. So it's a banner for your other Vultures, which might come up, but usually you'll be swinging with this into like an empty board or so, and getting that suppression off. Seriously, one of the most powerful cards in the game right now, just because its suppression isn't tied to any kind of condition, and it always has it. Unlike the structure deck Barbatos, unlike the Cubile, and I think there's one other card that has it, but I'm not thinking of it at the moment. Also playing 2 of the Aerial Rebuild. This is also kind of a win condition because you can add a command card if you've binned it back to your hand, which will come up. We're playing 4 Garrod. Need to use their main pilot in this deck. Playing 2 Slutta. She comes up sometimes just to stand a resource again. It's very useful. It doesn't really matter what unit you pair her with. If you can get her on the aerial, it's excellent. But otherwise, you don't really need to worry about putting her on a link unit or anything. We're only really using her for the effect to restand a resource, because some of our cards are 1 cost. We're playing Roybia as a cheap pilot, but also if you have 7 or more, you can bin this to let you attack a standing unit that's level 4 or lower. We're playing 4 of him. He's okay. I don't think I've ever actually used the command effect unless in duos. It's really, really cool to be able to let your guys swing into opponent on the other team to help you clear the board up, get that gumminess away. But in singles, I find I'm using it as a pilot just to link with the Airmaster flight mode for a 4/3 to swing into base with. Now for commands, we're playing 1 Awakened Power. This card sucks ass, but we're playing it because it lets you get a unit out of the garbage, level 5 or lower. Usually what you're doing with this is you are paying its cost, paying the 2 on turn 6, and getting out a Gundam X to get its effect again if you have Garrod in hand still. But if you don't have Garrod in hand at that point, that's why we're playing Momentary Respite. 3 copies of it. Really 4 is too many, 2 is too few. I think 3 is just the right amount of cards. Feels weird to play 3 ofs in this game, especially cards like Awakened Power that don't have burst, or Roybia that don't have burst, but what can you do? There's just not that many burst cards in purple that are worth playing. Unlike Last Resort. or Decisive Last Resort. This card is way overcosted for what it does, because it, on top of being a level 5 4-cost card, you also need to exile, new mechanic, 6 cards from your trash, 6 purple units from your trash, which is why we are maxed out on the Genis and the Gafran, also as well as the rare Gundam X. You will be exiling some number of those, all 3 of them, to proc this card. It just lets you straight up kill any unit in the game. No other caveats besides the fact that it is extremely costly and you need to be running your Genesis out constantly to fuel it. We're playing 2 of them because if you see both, you can just kill 2 problematic cards and win the game on the spot. Hopefully by the time you get the second one, you're already 12 units deep. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to worry about holding onto it for any longer. But if you draw both of them on your mulligan, you basically lost the game, especially in singles. In doubles, you can kind of finagle it, so it's not so bad. We're playing 4 Overflowing Affection, main draw card. This card is extremely good for setting up your Decisive Last Resort and your other cards. And we're playing 1 Astacasia School. It doesn't care about color, so we're playing it as a 5th base to buff your Link units. Being able to swing with an X Gundam that's like 8 AP, I believe. Let's actually double check. Oop, I passed it. Yeah, 6 plus 1 from Rod is 7, and plus 1 from Astacasia is plus 1 from Astacasia will give it 8. 8 AP is enough to kill pretty much anything in the game, I believe, unless somebody manages to make their units indestructible or something. It's good enough, and you're not really rusting this base with the Zeta or anything, so it's decent. Having 5 bases, I think, is a sweet spot for this deck, because if you run out of Freedens, like, you need to hit some mills with it, and you just like keep dumping it, or for hand power, since you more often than not end up with more cards in your trash than you ever do in your hand. It's nice to have a 5th base you can rely on, just in case it ends up in your shield. As for the Freedom, we're playing 4 of it, max copies of a purple base, of course. This kind of synergizes with the deck. When it's destroyed, you get to mill 2. Hopefully you hit some units with it and not your commands, because if you mill Garrod, you're basically screwed. We are playing 3 Momentary Respite to get him back out of the trash. Usually your turn, or like the combo is like you let the Freedom get destroyed, you mill Garrod, you mill the X, you use Momentary Respite and Awaken Power or some combination thereof to get these cards into rotation. Get the X out, put the big X back in hand, link with Garrod to reveal a bunch of cards. Keep digging through your deck and just keep milling with Overflowing Affection. You will probably see this card every game. I think every game I've played with this deck, I've seen every copy of it. Maybe not played it, but it's been in hand and discarded, or it's been milled into the trash just because you mill so many cards. This deck is extremely consistent in its game plan, but it's a little anemic in terms of actually being able to accomplish it in a reasonable time frame. I think what happens most often than not, if you don't get dragged into an extremely long game by abusing your blockers, like your opponent isn't playing Breach, or they're not playing High Maneuver, like if you're just playing against some crappy stun deck, or ping deck even, you'll outlast them with blockers until turn 10 or even 12, God forbid, and you'll barely squeak out getting the LRX and be able to win off the suppression. But I find that usually I'm swinging this into a single shield as the last attack, and needing to attack again and then dying when it gets back to the opponent's turn. This is another one of those cards the opponent cannot let untap ever, because its suppression is not conditional. It becomes incredibly problematic if it lands, and even if it doesn't have a link, or if it's not linked, because it becomes a threat that they need to deal with, or else it's going to take out 4 of their shields if they don't let it, or if they let it untap. Just because it has suppression constantly, it's an enormous threat that needs to be dealt with. It's basically a must answer, so it's going to be soaking up a lot of hate from your units if you don't find a way to either restand it, or you don't have a second copy that you're able to get to. If you only see one, it's kind of GG's, because it's going to soak up all of your opponent's units, probably die in 2 hits, because it's only got 5 AP. But that's what we're playing, max copies of the Gundam X, the rare just to try and put it back in hand and hopefully cast it on the next turn. The reason I think this deck isn't good, despite how consistent it is, every game I've been able to do, some manner, some variation of this combo. It's incredibly consistent. You're able to do it all the time, especially proccing Last Resort at least once every game. You should be able to, with just how many cards you mill or discard. The reason I don't think this deck is good, despite its consistency, is because it's very slow and its game plan is kind of parallel to how the game has developed over this meta. Currently, the best deck to be playing, I think, is a white or blue-green rush strategy. Basically, units swarm using Corsica base. Where the Astacasia School and the Frieden fail in their role as bases is the fact that they are bases you are playing in your deck that only prevent you from losing. They do not advance your win condition as much as you might like to think that the Frieden is contributing. It is, one, it is decking you out, and two, it is putting cards that you could have been able to cast, like units, into the grave. You are never going to want to cast the X to grab anything else. You can't really use it to grab anything else because it only grabs Vultures, and all we have is the big X right now. You can only grab purple pilots with Momentary Respite, and you can, while you can cast, or is it? I'll reread it. You can cast any unit card that is level 5 or lower. If you are using it to cast anything that isn't called Gundam X, you are so far behind already that you are not going to be able to make it up with this, especially because Awakened Power makes you pay the unit's cost as well to recast it. So not only is it level 6, 2 cost on its own, if you want to cast the X out of your trash, it's going to be another 3. If you want to pay for the LR, it's going to be another 5. So it's your entire resources on turn 7 without being able to cast a pilot as well. Or for the aerial, it is going to be another 5. Same thing, another 7 as well on turn 7 without a pilot. And you won't be able to get the when paired to get another command out, which is really tragic. So this card doesn't really help you either. Unfortunately, you just have too many units in trash, and if you aren't able to kill your opponent by drawing enough units to begin with, then you are pretty much screwed. This deck is great in doubles because your teammate will be able to block for you and take the heat while you get to the big X. Unfortunately, there is no other source of units. You could be playing the Striker pack, but again, that is a command that could be a unit for Decisive Last Resort. Synergy just isn't really there. You can be playing it because it's in white, but I think just having the Lofrith as a unit on field, they are able to just get, or being able to leverage the synergies with the other cards is a little stronger and a little more consistent for all other game plans. If you're playing doubles, definitely feel free to try out the Striker pack or other variants, more copies of the X, up to 4 even. More or less Lofriths, same with the Airmaster. Just having blockers, being able to dictate battles on your terms is really helpful for advancing the game. But outside of that, it just doesn't really have enough units that are worth playing. There's no other sources of damage besides your units in purple right now, unless you're playing the Tekadon deck or the Tewaz deck, I think, which has some manner of ping and is being paired with blue stun for the non-unit based damage on the commands and the stuff like not the Gopaldi, what is it? On the Anksha and the gun tank for their on deploys. Basically, this deck is you're trying to mill as many cards as possible, then fish them back out with your X and Momentary Respite. Or Respite. Respite? Who knows? This deck is really fun in practice. It is cool to mill a whole bunch of cards. You basically get to see your entire deck every game, which is more than a lot of other decks can say, I think, because they kind of tend to peter out of draws if they're not running exactly Overflowing Affection. Another good thing about this deck is you're not playing blue. Some people I've seen have been trying blue with purple besides the Tekadon deck, just to be able to have other options for damage like the ping. And as an excuse to run Corsica base alongside the Frieden, which I think technically synergizes because if you mill a Corsica and then you deploy a Frieden and your Frieden gets destroyed, or rather, you can mill a Corsica and then hit another Corsica on draw and deploy it on your turn for the 2 tokens instead of 1, which is really helpful as an extra source of units. But unless they figure out a way to give you tokens in purple explicitly just that, then I don't think this deck is going to be meta anytime soon. We're still looking at the new cards in the next set to see if they print any more Vultures that are worth playing or if red is worth teching. But for the time being, I think this deck is mostly just fun in doubles. And you might be able to scum a win or 2 off it in locals, but I wouldn't expect to be able to top with it. I certainly haven't been able to, despite my winning record against friends and friendlies and online on Wingtable versus the clan bot. It isn't really enough to hold up against meta strategies, I don't think, unfortunately. But it is fun, which says a lot about it, I think. Anyways, that's been the profile and a bit of an explanation about it. Hope you've enjoyed, and I hope you pick this deck up for yourself. I believe the X is pretty cheap right now, probably under $5, so you should really get it for a decent amount of money. Definitely stonks for the future, assuming that they print more Vulture cards that are worth playing. Thanks for listening.